During the second and last presidential debates in the United States, both candidates discussed about several topics, including China and their way to proceed in the international arena with this country. Uruguayan president announced that the country's borders will remain closed during summer season from December to March, and restrictions will be reinforced for current exceptions. The deputy head of the United Nations support mission in Libya made the call to halt the military escalation in this country. From the headquarters of TeleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm Laura Palmeiro. And during the second and last presidential debates in the United States, both candidates, President Donald Trump and Democratic candidate Joe Biden, discussed a very important topic, China. Let's hear what they had to say.
Bank accounts, and they're all listed, and they're all over the place. I mean, I was a businessman doing business. The bank account you're referring to, which is, everybody knows about it, it's listed. The bank account was in 2013. That's what it was. It was opened it was closed in 2015, I believe. And then I decided, because I was thinking about doing a deal in China like millions of other people. I was thinking about it, and I decided I'm not going to do it. Didn't like it. I decided not to do it. Had an account open, and I closed it.
Okay.
Excuse me. And then, unlike him, where he's vice president and he does business, I then decided to run for president after that. That was before. So I closed it before I even ran for president, let alone became president. Big difference. He is the vice president of the United States, and his son, his brother, and his other brother are getting rich. They're like a vacuum cleaner. They're sucking up money
President
every
Trump,
place
thank
you go.
you.
What China do is play by the international rules, not like he has done. He has caused the deficit of China to go up, not down, with China, up, not down. We are making sure that in order to do business in China, you have to give all your intellectual property. You have to have a partner in China. It's 51%. We would not do that at all, number one. Number two, we're in a situation where China would have to play by the rules internationally as well. When I met with Xi, when I was still vice president, he said we're setting up air identification zones in the South China Sea. You can't fly through them. I said we're going to fly through them. We just flew B-52, B-1 bombers through it. We're not going to pay attention. They have to play by the rules. And what's he do? He embraces guys like the thugs like in North Korea and the Chinese president and Putin and others, and he pokes his finger in the eye of all of our friends, all of our.
For his part, U.S. presidential candidate Joe Biden expressed his concern on other countries' interference on U.S. elections.
Made it clear that any country, no matter who it is, that interferes in American elections will pay a price. They will pay a price. And it's been overwhelmingly clear this election, I won't even get into the last one, this election, that Russia has been involved, China has been involved to some degree, and now we learn that Iran is involved. They will pay a price if I'm elected. They're interfering with American sovereignty. That's what's going on right now. They're interfering with American sovereignty. And to the best of my knowledge, I don't think the president said anything to Putin about it. I don't think he's talking to them a lot. I don't think he said a word. I don't know why he hadn't said a word to Putin about it. And I don't know what he has recently said, if anything, to the Iranians. My guess is he'd probably be more outspoken. I made it clear.
On Thursday, former Bolivian President Evo Morales accused the Secretary General of the Organization of American States, Luis Almagro, and former Costa Rican Foreign Minister Manuel Gonzalez, head of the organization's observation mission to Bolivia's 2019 elections, of criminal behavior, as their flood of reports on alleged electoral fraud in last year's election led to massive human rights violations and crimes against humanity across the country. The former president also announced that he would file a complaint against the two officials before the International Criminal Court to ensure they respond for their actions.
Luis Almagro doesn't have any moral authority to lead the OAS. If he does not do so, resign, I asked the member states of the OAS to initiate, according to Articles 116 of the OAS letter, the pertinent procedures for the removal of Almagro as Secretary General. Recent report from CELAC demonstrate the criminal behavior of Luis Almagro that not only contributed to undermine the free sovereignty of the Bolivian people, but also caused irreparable damage to the legitimacy of the international electoral observation missions. Given the fact that the actions of Mr. Luis Almagro and Mr. Manuel Gonzalez resulted in massive human rights violations and crimes against humanity, we will file a complaint to the International Criminal Court for them to be persecuted and tried, so that people of Latin America will be prevented from suffering what the Bolivian people have had to suffer until now.
Venezuela's Attorney General Tarek William Saab has called on the population to participate in the mock vote to be held on Sunday, ahead of the parliamentary elections set for December 6.
I call on the population to participate in the mock election exercise this coming Sunday. We have been given a manual on how this very important mock vote will be conducted. The information that we have received is very important. The manual tells us about the participation in the exercise across the country, where 381 polling stations will be set up, including one installed here at the National Electoral Council headquarters.
Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro has extended his congratulations to the movement towards socialism following its landslide victory in Bolivia's general election held on October 18th.
Y si Bolivia le acaba de dar una lección al mundo con votos.
And yes, Bolivia has just taught the world a lesson with votes. We must turn the elections of December 6th into a great victory of peace and the Venezuelan democracy before the world. In Bolivia, the mass is winning the elections with 55% of the vote, more than 25 points ahead of the second candidate, the candidate of the right. It is winning in 6 of the 9 departments in which Bolivia is divided. It is widely winning in the Chamber of Deputies and the Senate of the Bolivian Parliament. A great victory of the Bolivian people against the coup.
The United States government has imposed coercive measures and an economic, commercial, and financial blockade against Cuba for almost 60 years, with the objective of stifling the economic growth of the country and sparking unrest among its population. Our correspondent Nayara Tardo has more in the following report. And now we continue with the past. We'll be right back after this very short break, so don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. As the COVID-19 pandemic continues to be a public health threat across Latin America, Uruguayan President Luis Lacalle Pou announced on Thursday the country's borders will remain closed during summer season from December to March, and likewise restrictions will be reinforced for current exceptions that include nationals, residents who return to the country for family and labor affairs, among others.
The government's decision is based on what has happened in the world when borders have been opened, what has happened in the world with the relaxation of tourism. Countries like Iceland that had few cases soared, and this was repeated in many countries.
And police cleared people from beaches in Peru's capital Lima as a new restriction introduced that is deemed to spread the virus comes into force. Peruvians are no longer but sit on beaches, although shorting activities are still allowed under police supervision. Prime Minister Walter Martras announced that it's part of a plan that foresees a first phase, so the beaches can be places where people can practice sports, go for a walk, run, or use the bicycle, but they can't go into the sea. Peru has more than 800,000 confirmed cases and more than 33,000 deaths.
I think it's very good that there are restrictions because the pandemic has not ended yet. Unfortunately, the war is sick at the moment, and it is unfortunate that many people have died and that currently there are many infections.
In terms of those who come to spend time on the beach, for people passing through, I don't think it's a problem, because being sat in front of other groups, people who you don't know how they look after and protect themselves, it could end up being a hotspot for infections across the city.
Hondurans gathered in Tegucigalpa this Thursday to pay tribute to healthcare workers who have died during the pandemic. Relatives and colleagues paid homage to those health workers who have been assisting the pandemic in the country and thus have died. The small tribute served to honor those who dedicate their lives to caring out the Honduran population. In turn, doctors emphasized that the medical supplies and equipment provided by the government are disproportional with regard to the health crisis lived in the country.
They are victims of a system that sent them to fight a war without the necessary resources to be able to succeed in it. With an enormous amount of doctors and health workers dying, microbiologists, nurses, intensive care workers dying in the country, it is crazy to tell people to go to the beaches, to tell people to go to resorts, to be in groups. It will create even more of an economic crisis.
Also, Spanish health authorities have noted that the increasing number of new coronavirus cases is putting pressure on intensive care units, while noting that the COVID-19 pandemic is
We have said it and we reassert today that we'll face very tough weeks. Let's not fool ourselves. This is how it will be. It's not a threat, it's reality. There's community transmission in several parts of our territory, so all Spaniards need to know we need to be on alert to flatten the curve. These numbers, they are personally starting to worry me. At the national level, we are almost at 22% of ICU capacity, ICU beds, and 12% of beds in hospitalizations. It's not about the system to be insufficient, but in certain regions, some provinces and some hospitals, there is the risk of limiting normal hospital activity.
Meanwhile, authorities in France decided to extend the COVID-19 curfew to 54 regions and one overseas French territory on Thursday in order to curb the spiraling spread of the virus.
Over the last few days, the situation has worsened. The circulation level of the virus is extremely high. Over the last 7 days, the radio is 251 people out of the 100,000. This means a 40% progression over the last week. In as far as the regions are concerned, the curfew had already been implemented in and around the largest cities. I've now asked prefects to extend this to other regions. As of this Friday at midnight, 54 regions and one overseas territory will be placed under curfew. This totals a number of 46 million citizens. It is imperative that we preserve our hospitals' capacity and also other healthcare facilities. The number of occupancies for COVID patients in those is now at over 40%. 4 regions are particularly affected. Auvergne-Rhône-Alpes, Ile-de-France, PACA at halt of France, where COVID patients' occupancy is reanimation is now at 50%.
Likewise, British authorities have moved to cities of Stoke-on-Trent, Coventry and Slough to the second alert level of the country's 3-tier system ranking areas, according to the COVID-19 risk. The decision comes just 2 days after the Greater Manchester region was placed under the highest COVID-19 alert level.
Unfortunately, we're seeing rising rates of infection in Stoke-on-Trent, in Coventry and in Slough. In all of these areas, there are over 100 positive cases per 100,000 people. Cases are doubling around every fortnight, and we're seeing a concerning increase of cases among the over 60s. So we've agreed in partnership with local leaders to move these areas into the high local alert level, coming into force at 1 minute past midnight on Saturday.
Germany's Disease Control Center reported a new daily record increase in coronavirus infections this Thursday as the country battles a surge in cases.
Haben wir mit 11.287 Fällen die höchste bisherige Zahl. In den letzten 7 Tagen sind etwa 3-mal so viele Fälle übermittelt worden wie vor 2 Wochen.
Ja, es ist 10 Uhr. Wir beginnen mit dem Pressebriefing im Robert-Koch-Institut.
Inzwischen ist die Situation insgesamt sehr ernst geworden. Das Infektionsgeschehen nimmt vielerorts rasant zu. Wir wissen nicht, wie sich das Infektionsgeschehen weiterentwickelt. Aber derzeit haben wir noch die Chance, die weitere Ausbreitung des Virus zu verlangsamen. Und jeder und jede kann dazu beitragen. Aber derzeit haben wir noch die Chance, die weitere Ausbreitung des Virus. Aber wir müssen damit rechnen, dass sich das Virus in Deutschland, zumindest in einigen Regionen, auch weiterhin stark ausbreiten wird.
Germany has registered 56.2 COVID-19 cases per 100,000 residents over the past 7 days, with some hotspots, including several districts of the capital, reported for more than double that figure. Today, the nation has confirmed more than 400,000 cases and over 10,000 COVID-19 related deaths. And we have more stories coming up after this final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. The deputy head of the United Nations support mission in Libya for made a call
avoid any military escalation. So in light of this emerging hope and these positive developments, 23rd of and I urge the two parties negotiating here in Geneva to solve all outstanding issues and forge a lasting ceasefire agreement.
The Prime Minister of Mozambique said the people that have been displaced in the northwest Cabo Delgado province are a consequence of terrorist attacks that began 3 years ago, where more than 2,000 people have been killed.
At this moment, we are here to assess a contingency plan for this rainy season, what to do so that there is no loss of lives and goods in our country.
Day after day, we feel that the number tends to increase, and this increase, in fact, may in one way or another change what our daily, weekly or monthly program is in terms of forecasting what the number of displaced people would be.
An Afghan military air raid targeting Taliban fighters in the northeastern province of Takhar, killing. The attacks on a religious school in Takhar also wounded 14 others. Talks are underway in Qatar to help the United States find a way out in its longest war. The U.S. signed an agreement with the Taliban in February to promote the negotiated end to the 19-year conflict, and talks between the armed group and the U.S.-backed government began more than a month ago, but have yet to yield in a major breakthrough. Russian President Vladimir Putin has reiterated his support for a peaceful solution to the conflicts between Armenia and Azerbaijan over the disputed Nagorno-Karabakh region, while noting that the combined number of deaths on both sides is close to 5,000 after 4 weeks of fighting.
Russia is taking such positions that allows us to be trusted by both sides and to play an essential role to mediate the settlement of the conflict and to bring closer their positions. I like that this compromise to be found. As I understand, our positions on the situation in South Caucasus do not match, because we believe that such deputies should not be sought by force and arms, but in a diplomatic way.
On Thursday, the Czech Republic implemented a new series of restrictive measures in yet another attempt to try and curb the steep rise in coronavirus infections. The measures include a ban on free movement and the closure of many stores, shopping malls and hotels. People will be allowed to go to work, to do business, visit relatives or buy food and other necessities. Wearing face masks outdoors and in cars is now mandatory in the country. Since the start of the pandemic, the Czech Republic has registered over 216,000 positive cases, about one-third of them in the last 7 days. And a group of right-wing extremists on Thursday attended to disrupt a youth cultural event with Kosovo in Serbia aimed at the reconciliation of the Albanian and Serb people. Riot police deployed in the Serbian capital Belgrade during the Mirdiata Dobar Dan festival, organized by liberal youth groups from Kosovo and Serbia, to prevent the disruption of extremist groups of the country that do not recognize the independence of Kosovo, which was declared independent in 2008. One of the extremists was reported to break through the cordons and reach the scene. However, he was then taken away.
For the past 6 years, this festival became a symbol of cooperation and dialogue between Serbian and Kosovan societies. During that time, we have enclosed dialogue between leaders, but the societies do not have dialogue. And when agreements are signed for highways to be built, railways, borders crossings to be opened, somebody needs to travel on those roads and cross the borders. And that is something we are trying to encourage.
And we have come to the end of this news brief. Remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For TeleSUR English, I'm Laura Palmeiro. Thank you for watching.